Losing a life has become a fact of life in South Africa's mining industry. In tonight's episode, we shine the spotlight on a multi-billion rand, multinational gold mining company, Sibanye-Stillwater, which to date accounts for about half of the total number of all deaths in South Africa's mines since 2016. Despite its stated commitment to save lives, families continue to mourn the loss of their loved ones.
When they picked him up, they realized that this guy, their ribs were broken, the whole spinal cord was broken, and there was no head.
These mines, has killed our brother.
In this instance, they never checked, they never cleared to see if the place is safe or what. They were insisting that the people should go and work in that workplace.
Is Sibanye-Stillwater chasing profits at the expense of its workers' lives?
Four other miners died. They succumbed to heat and gas at the unventilated area of the mine on Monday. It's alleged that a shift manager forced the workers to go to work in an unsafe place.
Mineral Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe says the death toll following seismic events at the Sibanye-Stillwater mine in Driefontein near Carltonville now stands at 5 mine workers, with 2 still trapped underground.
An agreement has been reached between the mine management of Sibanye Beatrix Gold Mine, labour unions and the Department of Minerals and Resources. That's of course after 955 mine workers were trapped underground.
Western Area, a mining town in the southwest of Johannesburg. Just like in many small towns, unemployment is rife here. Local youth look towards Sibanye-Stillwater, the big mining corporation, to provide employment. The mining giant employs over 50,000 people in South Africa.
Our culture and actions are guided by our 5 core values: commitment, accountability, respect, enabling, and safety.
48-year-old Lungani Tallboy Nonjiko worked for Sibanye Gold for 29 years until he met his untimely death in 2011.
There was a massive fall of ground in that area where they happened to be a major fall of ground in most of the mined and unmined area underground there. And my father was badly injured. I mean, he was beyond recognition. There was basically no head. There was all the bones were broken in his body. The only thing I could identify him with was his hands. And I'm the one who took off his ring from his hand.
Watson Nonjiko says he is haunted by the manner in which his father died as a result of a rockfall underground.
I've got a close friend who told me that when they found my father, he thought that he was actually lying on his back. And when they came closer to him, he was actually lying on the face. When they picked him up, they realized that this guy, their ribs were broken, the whole spinal cord was broken, and there was no head. And they just dragged him and put him in the body bag.
According to Watson, his father was killed in an area similar to this one, where the roof and the floor of the area where he was working underground collided and crushed him.
I'm not talking about a small rock that collapsed in that area. There was no small rock that collapsed on top of my father. That whole area, there's something we call a dynamic closure. In that area, there was a dynamic closure. It was a dynamic bump.
He alleges that despite the geological risks identified at the time, the mine still insisted on sending his father into a mined-out area, which is a little portion of land that is left when a very large portion of land has been dug. These areas have to be supported by pillars to stay intact.
The new manager came in and he gave instruction that they should continue with mining because there was an area that was not mined out. They left that area where my father died, they left it unmined. just to, for the sake of geological structures, geological features that were there, that were, simply going to lead to accidents that could be prevented. And an instruction was given that they should mine the area. They should mine that area, of which they did.
At that time, the mine was still called Goldfields, before it diversified its operations and listed as Sibanye Stillwater. Watson says his efforts to find justice for his father have so far been unsuccessful. In addition, despite promising to pay for their education as part of compensation for his father's death, he says the mine has failed to fulfill its promise.
After my father's passing, management came to our house, and they asked us, what is it that we need, what are we lacking, and in terms of education, they assured us that the mine is going to educate us, my siblings, including myself. And later, that never happened. It never happened. They refused to educate my siblings, such that sometime last year, I wrote an email to the management requesting them that, in fact, asking for donations, because my brother was at school, and we attached in my emails the proof of administration as he was at school furthering his studies in paramedics, and he had to drop out because my mother couldn't pay his fees.
Sibanye denies having received the said email. Despite the brother's insistence to the contrary, the company says it paid for the children's primary education and will look into complaints regarding payment for higher education. Disillusioned by the diminishing prospects of qualifying as a paramedic, Watson's 23-year-old brother started working at Sibanye Stillwaters in Kamva Shaft in 2015. As if losing a father at the mine was not enough, on June 11th, he too was part of those injured at the same mine. Unlike the other 5 who recently died, he was lucky to survive and is currently in hospital.
He was one of the guys, he was amongst the guys who died at the Kamva Shaft, and by God's grace, he survived, from the heat stroke and all the possible harmful gases that were detected in that area, if there were gases detected, because my brother got in that place. He was also one of the guys who were in that area. He went there he was trying to rescue his colleagues, and he ended up falling into the same trap.
Watson's family is one of many affected by accidents at this mine. This year alone, 46 miners throughout South Africa have died in mining accidents. Almost half of these happened at the same mine, Sibanye Stillwater. Behind this statistic are people like Lungani Tallboy Nonjiko, whose dreams have been cut short. Watson says his father wanted a better future for his children, and he was hoping that one day he will see them becoming successful members of society. Mthokozisi Msutu succumbed to his injuries following the mine accident of the 11th of June, at which 4 other people lost their lives at Sibanye Stillwater.
Besingamadoda ayi-8 sajika thina sibathathu basala phandle. Xa sifika phaa phansi siphethwe ngumtshiso kunjalo sisemoyeni sahlala silindile uba abafowethu bayabuya. Kwavela omnye usisi kwaba sisi sisebenza nabo, usebenza ne-main captain. Uthi lo sisi, yes, sibuya phakathi kanti nina ubapha bani sithi hayi sibashiye phakathi thina.
He left behind his mother, wife, and 3 children. He was only 39 years old, and he had worked for the mine for 10 years. His death left the mourners outraged.
It saddens us when workers are dying underground on the line of duty. And we've got a feeling that management prefers production than safety. And we've asked many interventions from the Department of Mineral Resources and also the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee in Minerals.
What I've seen in Loco gave me enough evidence to say the mine is fully responsible for the death of those 5. The entrance to the workstation should have been barricaded. It was not barricaded, and yet that place was not working since 2015. I'll tell you how they operate. When they finish gold in a particular workstation, they leave it for a couple of years. Just like a tree, it grows again. And then after a few years, the gold has grown there, then they put the people there to mine. In this instance, they never checked, they never cleared to see if the place is safe or what. They were insisting that the people should go and work in that workplace.
The Benchmarks Foundation is owned by the churches in South Africa and located at the South African Council of Churches Khotso House in Johannesburg. It says as gold becomes less available, the miners have to dig deeper under harsher conditions that high-tech machinery wouldn't be able to withstand.
The rock gets so hot that you can actually fry an egg on it, okay? So you constantly have to pump in cool air to cool down the rock and so on. The conditions are very tight, the conditions are very dusty.
The foundation also accuses the mining sector of prioritizing profits at the expense of human life. They say cost-cutting is to blame.
A team of workers underground would have a health and safety officer with them. Usually it is a union person. And when it comes to Easter weekend, or when it comes to Christmas time and so on, and people want to take bonuses home back to the labor sending areas and so on, they really push productivity at the cost of safety. And if the safety officer tries to stop an operation because the area where they are operating is unsafe, they report him to management as being an obstacle to productivity, and he gets removed. And someone else gets put in who might not be as willing to look at the safety issues in the workplace as the previous safety officer did. And this then creates conditions in which fatalities occur.
Sibanye-Stillwater denies these allegations.
Absolutely not. The restructuring that we've done at Sibanye started in 2013. It was predominantly in the services environment, so it's not in the underground environment, and it was implementing more technical capacity within the management structures. From 2013 right up until the beginning of 2018, we've had a leading safety record. It's only in the first part of this year that we've seen a deterioration in the safety performance, which is unparalleled in our history. It's very traumatic. And of course we need to address it, and we are addressing it. We have found that attitudes and behaviors need to change to actually break through the plateau that we had reached over the last 5 years.
This man requested that his identity be concealed for fear of victimization. He works at the mine and claims that on the 11th of June, the mine used the workers to test the viability of an unused area underground.
Place in but to sebetsa ho yona e work out like ne sa sebetswa like for naketele. Then what happened kuri on Saturday, those people like were moving to that area. Then what is equipment ba sebetsang ka yona. Now, the day of the scene in 2018, the shift boss who has no right or akinye batho ko kunthong ko ka hare ke ena ile a forsa batho bale hore ba kene ka hare without consent ya minor who has a right ya hore akinye batho ka hare. And ba bang ba ile ba hana mara ba bang just because ba tshaba hore ba ka fumana di warning, ba bang ba ka lahlehelwa ke mosebetsi, like then they were forced to go there because ne ba ncenka mosebetsi. Otherwise ha e ka be mohlomong ntho e sa etsahala, ba setseng ka tlase ba sa hlokafalang e ka be mohlomong like ba ko mathateng ona jwale ba le casing or ba gana ho sebetsa.
Another mine worker claims that the mine workers risk losing their livelihood if they refuse to work in a dangerous area.
Ni ku tshemba ka ku hetelela loko swi vulavuriwile a ni nga li kona mina, and ni ku tshemba mhaka leyi va yi vulavulaka. A kapteni i tshembisiwile swi nga tshembisiwa ni swi tivi, a supervisor a tshembisiwa nga tshembisiwa swi ni swi tiva ni nga li kona, mara loko va vulavula ni ku swi fakaze ku ni hanya ka swona, ni khale ni la mayeni, ni na 20 years na ni tirhela mayeni, na tiva vutomi lebyi hanyiwaka la mayeni. So va chavisiwile and va gcina va endla yini, va chavisa vatirhi swa ku loko mi nga yi ma nghena ka ndhawu liya mi ta hlongoliwa. A vanhu lava nga lova a va lovanga ku vo nghena vuphukuphuku, va love ku chavisiwa byela swa ku loko mi nga la ka tirha laha mi ta chavisiwa, mi ta hlongoliwa khampanini, loko mi huma la mi ta hlongoliwa. Va gcina va nghena na va xavisa vutomi la vona hi ku chava ku hlongoliwa khampanini.
I'm sure the management is the one who gave instruction to that production supervisor hore I alo sebetsa man. I'm sure they didn't mind about Jori ba check hore how is the working place there.
Certainly that's not acceptable. I think legally it's unacceptable as well. It is certainly not part of our value and cultures. And if there are allegations, and we've followed through on allegations we've read in the press, and we cannot get to individuals or names, if we will not tolerate it at all. The shift boss's work for that day, we believe, was clearly not to go into that area. The planning minutes that we've been able to access indicate that an entry into that area would only have been undertaken once an ore pass had hold and once the appropriate risk assessments were done. So it's very difficult for us now to speculate on why he would have done what he did. And it's also difficult for us to access the witnesses, being some of the unionized members, because then we perceive to influence witnesses. So it's very important to allow the investigation to go through the normal channels so we can fully understand the circumstances around why he entered an area he shouldn't have.
The company says even though there's risk in deep-level gold mines, it doesn't explain the recent deaths.
Deep-level mining is more risky because of its nature, but the fact is we've been operating at these depths for decades now. So you cannot attribute that to the recent spate of very unfortunate accidents that we've had.
Sibanye-Stillwater is a company that has the highest number of mine fatalities in the country in the past 2 years. It is listed on the JSE and the New York Stock Exchange, and it has presence in various countries in the world. After acquiring a few mining operations from Anglo Gold, Lonmin and others, its market capitalization shot up to about 10 billion rand. In 2017, Sibanye posted a 47% increase in revenue and claimed a 14% safety improvement. In 2015, about 1,200 mine workers protested and refused to come out of the mine following the death of a rock drill operator at their Driefontein Masakani shaft. The pathologist report determined that the employee died of natural causes, but the mine workers and the unions disagreed with that finding. They accused the mine of shifting the blame to workers when they are responsible for flouting safety procedures.
Yeah, go to upper. These mines has killed our brother. That's the bottom line.
More fatalities were reported at Sibanye's Driefontein and Kloof operations earlier this year. In February, 2 employees died at the Kloof operation. A week later, 1 more died at the Driefontein shaft. Between March and May, 11 more died due to rock falls caused by seismic events. Linganani Mngadi, Lucky Msada, Mthokozisi Msoto, Cedric Nkuna, and Kolekile Pelileo. These are the mine workers who died on the 11th of June at the Kloof Ikamva shaft. In a statement, the mine says they died due to gas and heat exposure. Their death left the country searching for answers. A week later, this was yet another memorial service organized by the mine.
The safety record at our operation over the past few months is not acceptable. And I am appalled that 2 disasters have taken place so close to one another. The recent spate of fatalities in a short period of time is unparalleled in Sibanye-Stillwater's history. The severity and the frequency of recent events is of grave concern to me. You have my personal commitment to do what is necessary to restore an acceptable level of safety.
Union leaders bemoaned what they consider to be failure by the mine and the state to play their role in ensuring the safety of mine workers.
Investment is about production, it's not about safety. The shareholders, they don't ask how many people you save per shift, they ask how many ounces have you mined per shift. And therefore the government itself, they are toothless. The reason why I'm saying this is that they rely more on foreign investments. So if they're becoming harsh on these mines, they will pull the plug on investments because we are a capitalist country. So therefore the safety of workers cannot be taken very serious until us as a working class, we take upon ourselves to make this mine safety.
There's always a first time under a new leadership that in government, a new leadership that has all the vigor and all the energy. We are sure that the institutions of state will have a responsibility as part of their key performance areas to perform with distinction, and that day would, let's hope it might be this one, where the first successful prosecution occurs.
Questions have been asked about how possible is it for this mine to continue operating despite it having so many fatalities? And has the Department of Mineral Resources played its role effectively as the regulator?
We are advocating for the amendments of the Mine Health and Safety Act to be more not really punitive, but to have a very serious measures taken against those that they flout mine health and safety. For instance, to put there must be a prosecution and maximum compensation to these kind of acts.
In an emailed response, the Department of Mineral Resources says it has executed its mandate in all the mines owned by Sibanye-Stillwater. It insists where dangerous practices were found, it has responded according to the law, and that it has raised its grave concerns regarding the mine's health and safety of employees. The recently signed pledge, in which the company commits to safety, is cold comfort to families who have lost their loved ones. The pain is also felt beyond the borders of South Africa. Yet, some of these victim stories will never be told. They leave an empty space in the hearts of their beloved, such as this family that has just come to collect the body of their loved one for burial in Mozambique.
Cedric ku ri munhu wa kahle ngopfu kale ku ta tirha lana last year June tirha contract rock engineer so but it have ingene permanent ke tirha mine this year ela February. Cedric I munhu loyi a nga ri na ntlhanu wa swihlange vanhwanyana vanharhu na majaha mambirhi a ri na nsati ekaya Maputo I tlhela futhi na nsati haleni loyi nga na 3 wa vana na so munhu un'wanyana a ri kahle ngopfu munhu loyi a hlonipha ene munhu loyi a rhandza ntirho wa yena.